Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Warrior Commission Now. This is a YouTube that is kind of an overflow, basically, of what we have learned in the past 9+ years in the Warrior Commission. And it is really just a series of conversations that Sharon Rudolph, and I, Christine Casten, are having. Sharon serves as the Director of Member Development in the Warrior Commission, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Warrior Commission. And we have just had this wonderful journey and story of sharing life together. And in the process of that, we just thought, hey, maybe we could share some of these conversations with you guys. And so we're in this place of sharing that. And the last conversation actually that we had was about tension into breakthrough. And we talked about giants in the land, in our circumstances. We talked about the tension of what it is to know there's a promised land, but not really knowing how to get into it and the choices we have to make. And in that, we talked about there's two kinds of tension that we wanted to talk about. And one was the tension in our circumstances, which we spent the bulk of the time talking about. But the other one was really the tension that we have sometimes in our relationship with God. And so as we walked away from that conversation and as we're walking into this one, one of the things we felt like was that there was a little bit more that we could explore in the tension in our relationship with God. So Sharon, you want to share a little bit more about what's on your heart for what that looks like?
I think anyone who wants to know God, there are certain things in our culture, there's practice in the church that we learn to do to facilitate relationship with God. You gather with other people who believe like you believe. You study the Bible, which is his word. You choose to pray. You choose to worship. Those are things, there's practice that we do. But there are times in our lives when we don't feel connected to him. It's like we're hitting the ceiling and do my prayers go through?
All right, that brass ceiling kind of feeling.
Yes, and all those things. So most believers in Jesus get to the place where you're like, okay, there's more. I want the more. We start on this journey of more. I want the more of God. And in that, tension is created because we as human people come into this journey with history. Yay for history.
It helps make us what we are.
And in the process, we get to learn how to keep the good stuff and let go of what's not helpful.
Exactly, because that's who we are.
Yes.
We let go of what we are. That's not what we want to carry forward, and we embrace who we are and how God created us.
Yes, and I think in my life, so many times I have found my tension in my relationship with God is because he sees me one way and I'm not agreeing with him in the moment.
Hello, Gideon, mighty warrior.
Yes.
I'm the least of the least.
Yes. Why would anybody pick me? And God said, well, this is what I see.
Right.
And in our journey, it's learning to have the conversations with God, listening to Holy Spirit for God's heart, for how he sees us. And on my journey, I started to realize there are certain kinds of books I gravitated towards, certain kind of songs that always got me. There were certain scriptures in the Bible that would just jump off the page at me.
Yep.
And in my process with God, you just have to ask the question, okay, what's this about? God, what do you want me to know? And he started to help me see how he wired me. And the more I started to agree with who he saw me to be, the tension would release. I would have the breakthrough. My life would start to flow differently. And it doesn't mean life is easy.
Right.
But there is a satisfaction in life when you're willing to live in the tension, pursue God in the tension, and see yourself the way he sees you and embrace that identity. So there's this wonderful group of people called the Warrior Commission. And it is a community where we are intentional about pursuing identity in God and with God, so that we're in alignment with him.
Right. It's all about, for us, it boils down to one word, and that would be intimacy.
Yes.
Intimacy with God and intimacy through God. Because when you're in that place of tension with the Lord, when he's saying, this is who you are, this is how I created you. And, and we're coming back with, no, I'm not worthy. I'm a worm. I'm, I'm the lowest of the low. And there's a sense of that's who we were before we actually stepped into that relationship with Christ, only because we didn't understand or have the capacity to recognize what it is that God actually created us to be, who it is God created us to be. And when we're looking at that space and we're saying, God, this is who you say I am, and this is how I believe, or this is what I've been told so many times that it must be true. And yet you're saying something so much different than that. You're saying that I am the beloved. You're saying that I am a daughter. You're saying that I am a co-heir with Christ. Well, that's like crazy mind-blowing, and I think part of the tension is also about kind of how we wrap our minds around what it is that God is saying. And then as we even just begin to understand it, then it's like, well, how do I live that life out? How do I really live in the fullness of who I am? How do I step into that place where what he says is what I understand, but also naturally live in that place, in that space.
Yes, because God isn't always rational.
He's constant.
He is constant. He is always there. He is loving. He is,
and he never changes.
He never changes. He keeps his promises. Yeah. But then he says things like, love your enemies.
Right.
And bless those who persecute you. That doesn't make sense at all.
No. That's not our natural human tendency, because our natural human tendency, and I think this is part of the tension too, is self-protection. We want to protect ourselves from whatever that is, that we don't understand or that we don't know. And so we tend to pull back and believe what's known rather than what could be. And I do believe that's part of the tension. But anyway, go ahead. You were going to share more.
No, and well, I love where you've taken it, because this is where the faith piece comes in. Mm-hmm. Because faith is when we choose to take a step, even though we cannot see what's possible. We know it's possible. We may even feel it's possible, but we're not seeing it.
Right.
And I love story. I love movies. Mm-hmm. And in the different places where the Lord allows very creative people to put things on screen, and you can see it happen. Mm-hmm. You can see the story happen. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, maybe that's possible. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's possible. And I think in our intimacy with God, he has conversations with us to do the same thing in our spirit, to help us see and understand what is possible in him. Mm-hmm. And then it's an act of faith. It's a step of faith to take the risk to live what's possible. And so the classic example is a movie. It's the third Indiana Jones movie, and he can't see. He's got to get across this chasm.
Right.
He's got all the clues, and there's supposed to be
a step of faith.
Right. And he steps when he can't see the ground.
Yeah.
And it's been copied in other movies, stepping when you can't see the ground. And in that place of tension, so often that's what God is asking us to do, to trust him for something we can't see with our eyes.
Right. Absolutely.
And for me personally, this is where the community piece comes in. Mm-hmm. Because in conversations with you and other believers who have walked their own journeys, Sally over here took that step of faith, and Joe over here took this step of faith. Well, gosh, they didn't crash. God helped them on their, well, maybe he's going to help me.
Right.
And so there's an increase in capacity in the community in taking those steps of faith, in moving into who am I?
Right.
To live that abundant life Jesus talked about.
And I think that's partly why in the Warrior Commission, what we do focus on is story and journey. Yes. Because, you know, we have the training, we have the development pieces, we have the encouragement to go into those deeper, intimate places with the Lord. Yes. But in that process, there's a journey and a story that each person has and each person shares. And so when we connect to that in their lives, we're not connecting to what they've achieved or performance or you know, whatever, you know, hitting some unknown mark that's always moving the moving target of what's acceptable, you know, but we are in that place where we're saying, let's share that journey and story, let's share that heart to heart. And in that place, we get inspired in our own relationships with the Lord. We see the possibilities of the freedom and the breakthrough. And it's synergy that allows us to step into more of who God created us to be and to live that out and to walk it out authentically, not trying to be that, you know, not working hard to try to be that, but to actually step into it. And there's an ease in it because once you navigate that tension and you step into the breakthrough, there's freedom. You know, and there's something that comes in the freedom of the breakthrough that is so life-giving and so exciting. And it has the ability to bring others into their own breakthroughs because of it.
Well, the word promises that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and we have in Jesus and our testimony.
Right. Our story and journey.
When you share the story and journey, you are creating space for the other person to overcome.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's fun being part of a community where that's just normal life.
Yeah.
That's normal life. We share and we increase capacity in one another. And it's a good place to live.
It is. It's a great way to live. Oh, and we are out of time again. So I think we are in that place where we have to shut it down, but we will continue these conversations. They're so fun. You know, I don't know if everyone else is having fun, but I sure am. So I'm enjoying just talking through all these things that are so amazing in Kingdom Life and just how we live out our Warrior Commission now. So we look forward to seeing you guys again. Hopefully you guys can join us next week at 7:30 a.m. PDT. We tend to actually film several at the same time, so we have a little break between each one, so we can, you know, refresh and just be ready for the next one. But we are filming multiple ones at the same time, so you may be able to catch multiple conversations. So anyway, you guys have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you guys as you live out your Warrior Commission now.
Yes. Bye.